Politics is something I try to keep away from my YouTube channel, but that's something that's going to change since I feel like I have the right to express my thoughts on the platform that I've built. Today I want to talk about video games represent different groups of people due to the fact that there's always this running feud about representation in video games, and I feel a lot of people don't see the true value and importance behind the representation of a targeted audience. If you're not exactly sure what I mean about representation, think of Ellie from The Last of Us Part 2. She, for example, represents the lesbian community and does a damn good job of doing so. Or even think about the newly announced Tell Me Why, which stars a transgender character as the main protagonist. Usually the crowd of people who fit in the same category as the one a studio is targeting turn out to be very thrilled and pleased with the product. This is because the majority of media they digest doesn't reflect who they are as people. As a minority myself in the sense of my race, that being black or African American, I myself can agree that it feels nice to have a protagonist of a game that fits my description. It's a refreshing feeling when you're a reflection of the character that you're playing as. Now, I myself don't care to be represented or look out for representation when I'm playing a game, but it's nice when it happens, but at the same time, I can't speak for everyone else. People who usually have complaints about video games featuring characters of different sexualities, gender orientations, or even race are often the people who look like the majority of the characters portrayed in our fictional based media, and that's straight white males. So let's face it, the majority of our video games are being created by the same group of people, so naturally that reflects in the art that is produced. But as of recently, we have been seeing an increase in video games represent females in the LGBTQ community alike. Usually we have females in our games, they are 95% of the time overly sexualized and nitpicked. We have gamers calling characters ugly due to the fact that their physique doesn't match the boob or booty they had placed in their minds. We have gamers complaining that there's censorship going on when it comes to a sexualization of characters, and this follows up with groups of women being pissed, thrashing these gamers, and to be honest, they are rightfully so, until it gets to the point where all men are generalized to be trash. Now, I don't at all agree with the generalization because I myself don't lust over video game characters. I may think a character's likeness is pretty or not pretty, but I won't go and claim that I'm not buying a game because I don't like how a character looks, or even worse, complain about the sex appeal of a character model. But I do agree with the amount of girl gamers feeling the need to speak up against that because these characters are a reflection of them, they represent women. And if men are overly sexualizing and critiquing these characters that are indeed not real, then who's to say that they don't do the same crazy sexualization when it comes to women in their real lives? Women want a sense of security within themselves, and you can't blame them for it. Also, gaming being very mainstream, the stereotype of girls not being gamers is becoming dormant. Now, this is only the crust over the matter at hand because things start to get really crazy when it comes to the actual sexual orientation of the characters. The pride movement and the openness of being gay is growing bigger day by day, but there's also still plenty of hate surrounding it. Things are indeed getting better when it comes to the moral view of it from others, but hatred is still very much out there, and I think it's still far from where we need to be. We have seen as of recent, as I stated before, that developers of a lot of these video games are finding a way to represent the LGBTQ community. Some feel very genuine, such as from the likes of Naughty Dog, but others feel lucrative and for the sense of making headlines. Now, even when I feel it's quote unquote off not genuine, I still think it serves a purpose in representing a group. Yet others seem to feel a need to be pissed and say that it doesn't change or affect the story of the game, so it's forced. For example, we're gonna go back to The Last of Us Part 2. In The Last of Us, Ellie, the main protagonist, is gay or lesbian. She has a love interest in the game, which is Dina. People argue, oh, if Ellie was straight and Dina was a man, the story would work just the same, which isn't wrong, but at the same time, that rebuttal is useless on its own. I feel this outlandish complaint is just being said because the character doesn't represent them, which shouldn't be much of a problem since most characters in media are straight anyways. Ellie is gay, so people who are gay can have something to look at that again reflects them. Someone who shares the same problems, feel the same feelings. Then we have gamers saying Naughty Dog has an agenda like it's a bad thing. If Naughty Dog does have an agenda, then so be it. I think of it as them showing the world that gay is okay. Also look at the game director, Neil Druckmann. He isn't white firstly, and he advocates for women's rights and gay rights, so of course he would more than probably use his platform to promote those things. All of this plays a purpose, and people that this game represents hold it near and dear because even though other games represent them, it doesn't do it as well. For example, majority of games that allows a protagonist to be gay is done by the player's choice. It's up to the player to be gay. While in The Last of Us, it's set in stone that Ellie is gay. There's no other option. It's put onto every single player, which causes that whole outcry for people that say, oh, they're forcing gayness on me. But what do you think gay people feel whenever they play majority games that forces them to be straight? This stuff goes both ways, and I can sympathize with that. But I won't sit and pretend that gay people are all perfect either, because there are some people from their community that just make them look bad. And I must admit, I've made the mistake myself of generalizing an entire community and called them what people usually don't like, and that's SJWs. The group of gamers I'm referring to here are the ones who make sure at any given moment to throw around the do-bro terminology and trash men for the sake of laughs and jokes. They forcibly stir the pot and make sure that they are pissing off heterosexuals, which I think in return hurts the cause of being seen as equal, because it's an annoyance, and it indeed deters heterosexuals from wanting to support them, in my opinion. But as I said, not every single gay person is like that, it's just a select group. This just leads to another ending battle of going backwards and forth, and people taking others' words and very much skewing from what was actually said and turning the words to mean a whole other statement that was initially or in fact stated. But there are also people who are annoying as hell on my side of the spectrum as well. They find the need to attack any form of media that has to deal with women or gays and say it's SJW just because they think everything is being forced and they generalize the dirty few. That indeed makes me look bad, and I'm someone of logic who indeed does support everything, except I like to call out the community when things do get rotten, but instead it backfires upon myself and I'm seen as a homophobe or someone who doesn't support the representation and the message, when in fact I very much do accept it and support it to the fullest. There's never been a time where I've said something suspect of being a homophobe or hating women, but the generalization from the feud hits. In all honesty, the majority of people keep their thoughts to themselves and just watch with a shaking head, but I'm more of a person of action and I try to speak my mind. People did get offended though when I joked about Dina having a big nose and saying that I'd rather have Chelsea Tavares, the character will soon be Kat, which is Ellie's ex-girlfriend, to be an interest of Ellie. Now this indeed was just a punching joke that was nothing too serious in my opinion, but then someone said I have hate towards Jews, which is very far from the truth, and even said that I'm sexualizing lesbians, which is also insane. But I can see how one can find this mean, since Dina is a literal reflection of Casina Cardona. So I have to say, I apologize if you're offended. I just grew up in an environment where roasting or punching jokes on each other wasn't much of a problem, especially when it's just poking fun at fictional media, but since others don't feel the same, I have no choice but to respect it. But back to the point at hand, all in all, representation is something that should be valued across all gamers, and I see it becoming more and more common as time progresses, which is amazing. Although, remember that representation doesn't always come in the form of sexuality, that's just what's hitting the headlines at the moment. For instance, it feels that every black protagonist we get in video games fit this stereotype of, oh, we're criminals or we're just some thug. Like, look at the most iconic black male protagonists, such as CJ from San Andreas, Franklin from GTA 5, or even Lee from The Walking Dead, who was literally on his way to prison before the outbreak even happened. There's so much I want to say about all this since that's what represents me, but we'll have to save that for another video. Going back to woman and LGBTQ representation, I can't blame but to admire The Last of Us Part 2 and what it's doing, especially when the basis of the game in reality has zero to do with the sexuality of Ellie, so it's not even being fed to the consumer, it sits perfectly. Also, you gotta think of the reach that this game has. The first title is seen as one of the most absolute best games of all time amongst many, and the sequel is definitely one of the most highly anticipated exclusives in PlayStation history. Naughty Dog also does a good job of not making Ellie a character prone to sexualization due to the fact of the world she lives in, her sexuality, and her physique, but even though male gamers aren't sexualizing her as much because it's kinda hard to, I think you can't really stop it since, as an alternative, lesbians are lusting over her. It doesn't bother me in any way though, I just feel it's the double standard this thing has that can frustrate me, but it was worth an attempt. I also think the game represents women and will do a good job of doing so, since there is indeed a plethora of women across the entire cast, such as Ellie, Dina, Yara, Emily, the Mystery Woman, Kat, and the newly revealed character of Chelsea Tavares, which we don't know as of now. The game also features a trans male who plays as Lev, the brother of Yara. Even then, this cast has drawn question in my comment sections of people pointing out that every character in this game seems to be a female. Now I just want to say there's nothing at all wrong with that and everything will be okay. Despite all the representation, I know the game is going to be amazing, and the game needs a representation because these people need to be represented for. The different cast will sure add another level of power to the game and its message, even though it seems to bother others for some odd reason, and I just still don't understand it. Representation is an absolute necessity in the video game industry, especially since again, it's become so mainstream and it's the biggest form of media in the world, both over music, movies, and television, which in turn means people of all walks of life are enjoying this amazing hobby we all know and love, which is gaming. Diversity makes things more interesting and pushes the industry forward, despite the fact that it pisses so many people off for no apparent legitimate reason. It just feels like a barrel of sodium and foam from the mouth because something is different, it doesn't reflect them when everything else, majority of the time, does. Also, we have to stop the narrative of no politics in video games because the art of the game is up to the director. And the views from person to person is indeed different, so that will reflect upon the products of the game, which results in varying art. So we gotta stop the no politics narrative, especially when we as people love to express ourselves, and that's what's so amazing about our lives. And that's how I've been feeling about the whole topic of representation. I hope my voice rings out to many because this is a subject I feel I'm very passionate about, and there's a lot of points that I missed, but I feel like I got to touch on a great deal in the 10 minutes you've given me. I hope this video was an eye-opener for you, or even touched you due to the fact that you are someone who appreciates representation like myself. If you enjoyed the video, if you can be sure to hit the like button so others can see, or even share, I'd much appreciate that. Also, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can have more videos like this to enjoy in the future. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time with another banger.